The views expressed by the host of this podcast are not opinion-based or for entertainment purposes. They are actually facts and truth, no matter if other people like it or not. It is the Detroit sports truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Detroit sports fanatics, and welcome to episode 187 of the Detroit Sports Truth on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips. It's been a week, and I'm with my top co-host on the podcast, Ed Smith, who has been battling a cold, but his voice is back to normal. You feeling better, Ed?
Better enough. Come back, play. And yeah, I'm trying to think of a witty line, but I just completely flopped when the lights were on. But you know, all intents and purposes short, I'm very happy to be glad to be well enough to be back on the show, providing great coverage, analysis, and deep going on Detroit sports, and I'm happy to do it with you, Taylor.
Yep, all right. I'm doing well as well. Wings hang on to Wings come back and win 3-2. Pistons and Spartans both lose again to their identical opponents in the same ways. But our top story is Drew Sharp continuing his reign of inept terror in the same way by plagiarizing an article. This one from the Detroit Sports Rags. Craig Russett closed down the NHL is his nickname. I want to open up this article here. Here we go. Megatron. At 9:10 p.m. on January 10th, 2016, Russett published an article headlining Megatron's retirement would give NFL a big headache. And it reads like this: Calvin Johnson might not need the NFL any longer, but the NFL badly needs him. If he's genuinely contemplating retirement after 9 seasons, he becomes another public relations nightmare for the NFL, for NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Only Johnson knows the real answers, and it's unlikely he'll say anything beyond the brief statement he released Wednesday with the Detroit Lions, in which he stated he would explore many options regarding his future, but that uncertainty should make the NFL a little nervous, because Johnson is a very intelligent man. He comes from a strong, supportive two-parent family. His mother has a doctorate. He also lacks the enormous ego that often limits a superstar athlete's self-awareness. Perhaps he can more honestly process all the available data linking the NFL's physical brutality with long-range medical problems. If Megatron thinks he can't take it anymore at age 30, what message does that send to the rest of the NFL? San Francisco middle linebacker Patrick Willis retired last March at 30 years old. The seven-time Pro Bowler told reporters that the combination of his injuries with stories of physical debilitation of many retired players contributed to his decision. Soon afterward, Willis's former teammate linebacker Chris Borland walked away from the game after his rookie season. At 24, he already was thinking what his life might become by age 40 if he continued to play a sport notorious for recurrent head trauma. He told reporters he deemed his long-term health more importantly than the money. The NFL has a big problem if it loses superstars, the promotional faces of the game, out of health fears. It's not as much about losing this Calvin Johnson as it is the next Calvin Johnson. There's another freakish teenage athlete out there. Some middle school phenomenon who already has sprouted well beyond 6 feet tall. Someone who already has big-time college football recruiters salivating at the prospect of having him on their team in 4 or 5 years. But do that kid's parents now steer him away from football because all the stories and information about debilitating injuries? Do the next athletic prodigies gravitate toward basketball or baseball? This isn't like Gale Sayers retiring after 7 electric seasons with the Chicago Bears because his knees were shot, or hockey's Bobby Orr, or baseball's Sandy Koufax. Orr and Koufax, 2 all-time greats in their sports, bolted at 30 because neither could physically hold up any longer. If Johnson retires, it's a choice, not a necessity. It would be much easier if he's simply tired of putting his now 30-year-old body through the grind of off-season conditioning, only to subject himself to the emotional purgatory of another underwhelming season. Both parties could reach an amiable separation, and Johnson could finish his career for a team with a realistic chance of realizing his dream of a championship. That's not happening with the Lions, and Johnson should see that more clearly than anybody else. Perhaps this is strictly Johnson seeking a little leverage, rather. He heard the repeated queries during the season about his future with the Lions. He's making too much money against the 2016 salary cap, $24 million. He could force his departure if there's any reluctance in renegotiating the final years of his contract. But Johnson has not exhibited the slightest hint of duplicity in his actions. It always was genuine, coming straight from his heart. It's why the Lions and their fans should be concerned as Johnson goes through the private deliberation as to what he should do next. But it should concern the NFL even more. So, like I said before, Craig closed down the NHL. Russett published his article right there at 9:10 p.m. Eastern. And then on the same night at 10:10 p.m. Eastern, Drew Sharp copied everything except for the photos published in this article by Russett. And everything reads the exact same thing from Drew Sharp as Craig closed down the NHL Russett. And that is clearly 100% plagiarism. Drew Sharp has gone from bad to worse in that category. And Drew Sharp is becoming more of a supervillain in the journalism world. There's got to be some kind of law enforcement or superhero to stop him. Oh, not quite superhero. I'm kind of exaggerating. There is no superhero in any world in real life. But there's got to be some kind of law enforcement that can stop Drew Sharp.
Either that or his employer should just do not only the noble thing, but the right thing in terms of, I guess you could say, at the very least, for PR, not to mention for moral obligation, that to fire this clown, okay? This was, first and foremost, give credit to Russett, first and foremost, which should always be given credit, like, especially in this instance, for a very nice, detailed, and thoughtful article, because it brings to light some issues what we think might be contributing to Calvin Johnson's potential retirement, while also mixing and matching new ideas as well. Because, like, one thing I do agree with him is it really worth it for Johnson to not only put his, especially the past few years, you've seen how his name continuously appears on the injury report almost every week. You mix that in, plus the grind of going through off-season workouts and training and OTAs and all that, but then to gear up for another year to go put your body through that again, only to know it's for naught, because this is the team you're playing on. At some point, it makes you feel mentally like, really, why go through this anymore? Especially when I'm making the amount of money that I'm making. So, like I said before, I would not blame Calvin Johnson in the slightest if he was not a member of the Detroit Lions this next season. You know, a part of me, as the person that roots for him, I would rather he just go to another team than if there was an option where no matter what, Calvin would not be on the lines next year. I would rather he just be on another team than retire, or be on another team that gives a way better shot at winning a title than the Lions have right now. But back to the topic at hand, that's what is with this whole mess, and Drew Sharp continue making a bigger ass of himself as that was even possible before. He must be aware at this point. He has to know of the existence of the DSR and what their attention has been on him and to him. I mean, for goodness sakes, there was a video about last year or a couple of years before of Sharp, but Jeff Moss basically bombing Sharp right to his face in broad daylight in public as Sharp was on his way to a Tigers game. I believe they were right outside Comerica Park. Moss just happened to have Sharp catch him walking down the sidewalk, had his phone ready to record, and just went after him as he rightfully should have. So there's that. So you got to know that Sharp is fully aware of Jeff Moss and the DSR, especially in light of now the recent revelations regarding Sharp's plagiarizing of the article regarding Connor Cook at Michigan State. So for him to do this a mere hour after a DSR's affiliate or DSR contributor posts an article with the exact same identical story, headline, word for word. What else do you need to know? What else can you do here? All right, it's beyond tiring. It's beyond baffling. It's just pure unregarded ilk.
It's a crime.
And it's a crime. Absolutely. At first, I gotta say, like, you were the first. You and I were probably the first two people to. Well, one of the earliest people to know about this. You notified me, with a message about 3 a.m. in the morning saying, "Have you seen this?" And you showed me a link, and I saw it, and I was like, "Hold on a second," because I thought this might have been a rip, like a joke or a troll. But I shared it with the DSR Facebook group, and they were just appalled, basically, especially Justin Spiro. And at what point does Drew Sharp continue to do this and essentially get away with it without there being some form of repercussion or consequence? It's ridiculous. Simply ridiculous.
Yeah, you typed in what in F-topia.
Basically, for those who may not get, it's a reference to a line of one of my favorite television shows, Dexter, that used to run on Showtime. But it's the type of line, that line kind of fits my mental state when it comes to this type of continuing story. Like, what in the world is going on where a very public, major newspaper corporation in a major city in the United States of America continues to employ a now very known and now repeat offender of plagiarism, and yet not only keep him employed, but do nothing that says, make a comment about his actions, or speaking out in any way, shape, or form, or let alone doing any action regarding it. Forget a firing or a termination, just a suspension, even something like that. Anything to let us know that you're aware of the situation and you're trying your best to take care of it. But no, that's none of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks to just how full of crap the free press are now at this stage. Like, this is far worse than what they suspended Mitch Albom for in 2005 with the fake story regarding Michigan State with Mateen Cleaves and James Richardson. Far worse. You have one of your most well-known writers literally stealing someone else's work, passing it off as his own, and not giving credit to anybody. What? And yet he's still allowed to be on your payroll and contribute to your paper? What the hell's going on here?
I know. Man, this is, it's just, crazy. like everybody in the Freep is out of their minds.
You're crazy!
Sharp is a scumbag.
Crazy!
Absolute dirtbag of the worst
Crazy!
quality to do this,
Crazy!
but it makes the Freep look even worse when they just stand by and nothing comes about of it.
Are you out of your mind?
That's true. And the longer they continue to defend that dirtbag, and for some mystery reason, the longer it'll get worse in the journalism world, in the newspaper world, and that's just it's just like I said, it's just a crime.
And for goodness sakes, it's gotten to a point where even Mike Valenti commented on it. It was a few days ago, but yeah, the DSR's Melrose Jerry Green, who runs the fake, I guess you could say, quote, fake Jerry Green account on Twitter, called the Millennium Foster Program and, asked for their thoughts on this whole mess. And Valenti himself said that's just something you can't do, and it's an absolute mess. He said he likes Sharp personally, but this is an absolute mess of a situation right now. And listen, as a Michigan, this is something you're going to hear a Michigan fan agreeing with Mike Valenti, but I agree with him.
Yeah,
it's a common sense thing to say, but come on.
Yeah, and even Terry Foster agreed with him. Terry Foster said you shouldn't plagiarize and make stuff up. Of all people. But that's because it's a no-brainer. You can't plagiarize. You can't do anything like that.
It is the worst sin to ever commit in the field of journalism. Right up there with, either that or lying about something, And Mitch Albom committed that sin, and he paid for his actions. So why hasn't Sharp?
Right, and Sharp is still unapologetic about it, and the Freep continues to, the entire Freep continues to defend him for all of his sorry actions as of late. So, Drew Sharp, we dare you to keep plagiarizing articles, because Jeff Moss and Justin Spiro and the rest of us at the DSR and the Detroit Sports Truth are going to track you down constantly every time you plagiarize an article. So keep doing it. We dare you. Because then the free press might actually finally consider even suspending you or firing you. But until they do something, the free press is no longer allowed on our podcast. It is banned.
Banned!
In the words of the late great Owen Hart, enough is enough, and it's time for a change.
Yeah. The Detroit Free Press is a virus, not only to the state of Michigan, but to the world. Until it changes its mind. So moving on to go on. Move on to the Lions here.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
The Lions have hired former New England Patriots Director of Pro Scouting Bob Quinn a week ago as their new GM, the General Manager, and Executive Vice President a few days later to President Rod Wood. And in between those moments, they hired Ernie Accorsi as a special advisor to the President Rod Wood. First off, from what I can tell, at first when they hired Bob Quinn as the general manager, I thought it was a good move because I thought it was a step forward originally. And then when they hired Ernie that was because when they hired Bob Quinn, that was because there was an interpretation that Jim Caldwell's job as head coach is no longer safe. And then when I got a notification that they hired Ernie Accorsi as special advisor to Rod Wood, they assumed that Jim Caldwell's coaching job is safe, but It's this whole thing is confusing me. It's confusing Bob Quinn and Ernie Accorsi. It's like confusing everybody. It's way more 50-50 than anything else. Bob Quinn still has a decision to make. He should have made the decision Monday to fire Jim Caldwell or keep him. Jim Caldwell should have been fired because of his inept in-game decisions, despite leading the Lions to an 11-5 regular season 2014 record, finishing 11-6 after the Dallas loss in the playoffs, before finishing 7-9 after starting out 1-7 before beating Green Bay in Green Bay for the first time since '91. But I still think Bob Quinn has like at least a 50% chance to fire Jim Caldwell. Ed, I want your take on that.
Well, on the whole hiring of Bob Quinn itself, like I like the move for at least one point where it's not an inner circle hire, which I feared it would have been, especially when dealing with the Ford family, with all the mess that we felt. Basically we were bamboozled with the whole thing regarding the lead up, the build up towards the hiring of Rod Wood. Very happy to see that they did not go in that direction. As for Quinn himself, I looked up some of the background information regarding him. It seems like one of his strengths, so to speak, was being a scout, whether it be for talent already in the NFL or maybe some talent coming up through college. That's good, because I think that's one of the major qualities that you're going to need as a general manager. You need to scout players, see what their potential strengths are, and see how their strengths can help make your team improve in areas that needs improving. So if it works out well, fine. Like I'm not going to set my expectations too high to say, oh wow, he's going to take us to the playoffs in multiple years within the first 2 to 3 years, have us win division titles by year 4. No, I'm not expecting that. Just like that's on the players to on the field to make that happen. What he needs to do, Joe, is give us the right player, make the right moves off the field. It was to even give us a chance to make some noise happen on the field. And one of those first steps is to, in my opinion, fire Jim Caldwell and bring on a new head coach. We've gone over this countless times in previous episodes to how Caldwell is just unreliable as they come when it comes to being a head coach, whether it be schemes, whether it be game management, even just simple emotions on the sideline. Like, really, that's the guy you feel confident as representing your team as its head coach? I don't think so. So it would be best, it would behoove the whole team as a whole for their future going forward to have any type of relative success if they part ways with Caldwell. But hey, I don't get to make that decision. That's going to be on Bob Quinn's shoulders. So it's a very interesting off season. It has been so far. It's going to get even more interesting as we move towards the spring and summer, as we approach the draft even. So it'll be interesting to see how things go from here.
And speaking of the NFL, we go to the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs break the Houston Texans 30-0. The Pittsburgh Steelers fall behind after leading 15-0, but come back to beat the Cincinnati Bengals 18-16. Vontaze Burfict was suspended 3 games for his targeting hit on former Central Michigan Chippewa wide receiver Antonio Brown, who was injured, of course, which cost the Bengals the game and their season. That was just a boneheaded play. And then the Seattle Seahawks barely hang on to beat the Vikings 10-9 in Minnesota. And then the Green Bay Packers on the road surge back and bury the Washington Redskins 35-18. So back to the Vontaze Burfict hit on Antonio Brown. That was like worse than a Lions way to lose right there.
The whole entire second half of that game, the first half itself was like a little bit weird itself because, saw the rain, saw the bad offensive play or / good defensive play. But, you felt Pittsburgh had this game in hand, especially in that third quarter with the whole, the hit. But really what's caused all this craziness was the table setter for all the craziness to follow. The hit by Shazier, the linebacker, onto Bernard, the running back from Cincy. You made debate on how, did he lead with his head? Was it a dirty play? But really the fact of the matter is Bernard was not a defenseless player, as we would see later on with Brown. Okay, he had the ball firmly in his possession, turned around, has his feet set. By definition, that is not a defenseless player. So you can't get mad at them for following the rule book because they followed the rule book. So, and then the whole craziness that followed soon after that, or might have been before that, after, whatever the case may be, there was the whole thing with the fumble, and then that was returned for a touchdown, but it wasn't because the runner was down by contact. A weird assortment of penalties and celebration penalties, and then before that though, and retaliation to the Shazier hit. I remember watching the game on the CBS telecast, and Tracy Wolfson, University of Michigan alum, got to plug that in, was mentioning towards on how on the sidelines Burfict needed to be pulled away and restrained by members, I think it might have been the training staff or coaches, whatever it is. He needed to be afraid of doing something stupid on the sideline. And then I said to myself, and I said to my mom who was watching with me, it's like, be careful, pay attention to that, because that may be a sign of things to come. And I should have known, even like how right I would have been, because the very first play after that, I focused my eyes on Burfict, number 55, whatever he was going to be doing on that field. So the first play he does, comes out for a scrimmage, he launched himself basically at the offensive lineman, tries to ram him head first with his own helmet, and I think some of the commentators even mentioned that, how heated it was getting out there. Then a couple plays later, the sack on Ben Roethlisberger, which injures his shoulder. Now, granted, that was a clean and legal hit. There's nothing you can do about that, but you can tell Burfict has some evil intentions on his mind, and he he took his anger out on Roethlisberger, and with good measure too. So that alone was a turning point in the game because your star franchise quarterback goes out, and then with the crowd feeding off the excitement and the emotion and the anger, fuels the team to get back in the game. They score a touchdown, gets the ball back, makes defensive stops. Easy to do when you got to rely on your suddenly now at the moment backup quarterback Landry Jones to be competent for you, which of course doesn't turn out to be well. And then it gets to a point where late in the game. Now, granted, they brought Roethlisberger back out, but remember, like when he first came back out, he stayed on the sidelines. He couldn't do a damn thing. So since he gets the ball back, goes down the field, scores a touchdown. Roethlisberger still doesn't come out. Very first pass that Landry Jones throws after that is intercepted by, of all people, Burfict, who then gets up after the play was over and runs out the tunnel on the opposite end. Which, Jim Nantz, he brought up a point. If he wasn't ruled down by contact, that would have officially rivaled Jim Marshall's running backwards for a safety play as the craziest / dumbest play in NFL history. But alas, the play was blown dead. But I thought maybe, could have been a delay of game penalty, might have been called there, that sort of thing. And then, no less than 4 plays later, Cincy, the running back Hill from Cincinnati, he fumbles and gives Pittsburgh new life. Now, you got to think. At first, you were about, oh boy, if this turns out to be a Pittsburgh win, all the blame's going to be on him. How wrong we were about to be. Now, some of the blame does fall on him because he's the one who fumbled the ball. But because of the actions of his teammates, I think most of the heat was taken off of him and was placed on them when people lost because. Like you said, especially, and some of this got to fall on Marvin Lewis too. Number one, you're the head coach. You got to, have some type of control, some type of discipline regarding this football team. There was none of that shown and exhibited whatsoever. So it leads you to question whether or not Marvin Lewis can continue his head coaching duties with the Bengals. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if he's been retained or fired yet, but we shall see in the coming days and weeks. But that was just a bad example of how to run a disciplined, level-headed football team. But also, another instance is where you had to have known Roethlisberger is injured in his throwing arm, and he can barely throw passes, 5 to 10 yards. Like, the most he can do is on screenplays and swing passes out the backfield. Why not send a few more rushes at him to blitz and put pressure on him? Because you know he can barely throw the ball. So send more guys at him, and hopefully he throws up a wobbly duck that might be intercepted again, game over. You know? So, of course, that he finds a way to dink and dunk and dash his way against the team closing downfield. And then, of course, we come to the Antonio Brown play. Now, say what you want. Oh, he put himself in that position. Oh, he finally. It doesn't matter. Burfict knew as soon as that ball sailed across Brown's hands, Brown was going to be a defenseless receiver. Brown, he was not in a position to protect himself. Burfict knew that. And even though, yes, he did not leave with his head, that was still a high, impactful hit at great force and momentum at the same time against the defenseless player's head. There's no point of getting around or escaping that. That was an illegal play in every sense of the word. Part of me was surprised that Burfict wasn't ejected right then and there. And then, in the midst of all this craziness, Adam Pac-Man Jones, the guy who's had his own problems with the league in the past, gets himself flagged. So that's another 15 for pushing an official because he had issue with the Steelers.
Pushing an official?
It might have been that, or
I can
pushing
hear
Joey
myself
Porter,
there.
the assistant coach of the Steelers who came out to the field. But I believe it was from pushing an official. That's what warranted that second 15-yard flag. Sportsmanlike conduct, which basically gave the Steelers 30 extra yards when they didn't have to move the ball a single inch due to a play, because the Bengals did that for them in their penalties. So the Bengals have no one else to blame for this loss but themselves, and only themselves. Their fans should be ashamed of themselves. Number one, for cheering cheering the fact that Roethlisberger was getting carted out due to his injury, and then had the nerve, the temerity, the gall to throw trash at him as he's being carted onto the field. Like, really? Yeah. So, I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy for them when Pittsburgh came back and won that game at the very end. I was like, you know what? Good for you. You got what you had coming to you. Bad sportsmanship, bad karma comes around to collect on it.
Are you out of your mind?
Yep, and that just ultimately cost the Bengals the game there. And then Roethlisberger comes back and helps his offense march down the field, and they get help from Burfict's hit on Antonio Brown, and get an easy field goal to win 18-16. And the Bengals, like you mentioned, have themselves to fully blame because of all that they did in the last few minutes of regulation in that game. So the Bengals completely, in so many dramatic ways, self-destruct, lose, and get eliminated from the NFL playoffs. And for the Steelers, they move on to play the Denver Broncos at Mile High Stadium or Invesco Field, whichever, Sunday at 4:40 on CBS in one of the divisional playoff, one of the AFC divisional playoff games. The other one is the Kansas City Chiefs at the New England Patriots Saturday at 4:35. In the NFC, the Seattle Seahawks visit the Carolina Panthers, the almost undefeated Carolina Panthers, Sunday at 1:05 on Fox. And the Packers, last but not least, go to Arizona and play the Cardinals in Phoenix Saturday at 8:15 on NBC. So just to make this fun here, why don't we go ahead and make some quick picks. We'll start with you. We'll start with the Saturday 4:35 game on CBS, the Chiefs and Patriots. Who you got?
Let's see. It's Tom Brady. It's New England at home. I'm going to say New England takes this one. Probably a little bit closer than some people might expect it to be, but I'd say New England will win this one.
I would say the same thing. And then the Saturday 8:15 p.m. game on NBC, Packers and Cardinals. Who you got? Packers won their last game in Arizona, the last meeting.
Now, granted, I think the game last week against Washington was a bit of an awakening for this Packers offense. Because for the better part of the last part of the season, Ben Roethlisberger but Aaron Rodgers was getting very little to no protection at all, getting constantly hit. But something finally seemed to have happened. So they now it makes Green Bay look like a scary contender all over again, as they probably thought to have looked like early on in the season. But I still think it may not be enough to take down the Cardinals, especially with the way they've been playing this year, especially at their house. So I'm going to be rolling with the home team on this one again and say Arizona's going to win.
Edward likes the Ed likes the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to pick the Packers by 3 actually, 37-34.
I expect to see another shootout just like we did in the playoffs in 2010.
And then we shift to Sunday at 1:05, Seahawks at Panthers. I'm going to pick the Panthers to win like 32-18. I think
I can see it be a little bit closer than that. Also, I think Seattle's defense, they'll make sure Cam doesn't score too many points on them. But the way Seattle's offense is going, they're literally going to need lucky breaks like they did against Minnesota to even have a chance to win. So I can see this one being a 27-14 type of deal, or 28-14 type of thing.
That's about that's not too close, but not too out of reach.
Not too lopsided either.
And finally, Sunday at 4:40 p.m. Eastern, Steelers at Broncos. It's a very interesting showdown between Big Ben Roethlisberger and Peyton Manning. I think I'm probably going to give the edge to Peyton Manning on this one because Ben Roethlisberger might not be 100% if he comes back to play the game in Denver.
Yeah, he's got a separated shoulder in his right throwing arm, so I doubt that's going to heal to 100% in 8 days. Even though he's got the extra days rest, I don't think that. I had a friend of mine tell me the other day, that type of injury takes weeks to recover, and may even need surgery. So you expect that to get better, or at least better to say a 75-80% level in 8 days. I don't think that's happening. Peyton Manning seems to be rejuvenated in his own right, and with this being the home game, and I see an extra sense of motivation for Manning because somebody tells me this may be his last playoffs. So that'll be a motivating factor, seeing if he can go out on his own accord with a Super Bowl victory, much like Ray Lewis did, much like Jerome Bettis did. So those are the reasons why I'm picking the Broncos to win. So basically, I'm picking all the home teams to win this weekend's games, which is weird because all the away teams, the road teams, won the games last week. That is correct, right? Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Green Bay. Yep. So
it's an omen.
Maybe things change. Yeah, maybe things can change course this weekend, and we get a reversal of fortune. You never know.
Right. So we've covered the NFL playoffs, all of it. And speaking of football playoffs, we go to the College Football Playoff National Championship game. The Alabama Crimson Tide and the Clemson Tigers go at it for all the marbles. And it was a very close one the entire way through, and Alabama just came out on top 45-40. It was just back and forth, and Alabama went up by 2 scores, but Clemson came back way late and scored a touchdown and kicked an onside kick recovered by the Crimson Tide, and that did it. Tide hang on to win by 5 points, 45-40. Nick Saban is just too good, leading his team to a title. Jake Coker, the quarterback, of course. Derrick Henry, the Heisman winner. So, what did you see, Ed, in that game?
What I saw was a very entertaining back and forth shootout between the 2 best teams in the nation, which in the end was won out by a team that, first and foremost, had the far superior coach. That was proven furthermore late in that game with, of course, the surprise onside kick, which enabled Alabama to score another touchdown, which, if you look back on it, that was literally the difference of that game. Because, say, for instance, if Bama doesn't get that, who's to say that keeps Clemson they get the ball themselves, they go down the field and score, and they could be calling themselves national champions right now. So that, that was literally the difference in the game. It wasn't like an offensive play or a defensive play. It was, of all things, special teams. That was a masterful job by Saban by recognizing the 3 huge important facets of all the game, not just offense, not just defense, but special teams. And that was a big, gigantic play that changed the course of what was to come in that game. Great display from the quarterback. Also a nice display from the Heisman Trophy winning running back, Derrick Henry. Clemson has nothing to be ashamed of. Yes, they came up on the losing end, but they played their hearts out. They did not quit. They did not give up. They fought until the very last, they fought to the bell, basically. Maybe, because I was pondering, my goodness, they the way this game's going, they might have themselves a shot if they can get this onside kick, but alas, it was just not to be. But both teams should feel very good about how they did in this game, especially, of course, Alabama, since they were the winners, and won, I believe, the 4th national championship under Nick Saban. That's 4 titles in 7 years. Saban's 5th total all-time, of course, because he won one in 2003 with the LSU Tigers. I believe that now makes him 2nd to Bear Bryant in terms of national titles won by a coach all-time in college football history. The Bear has 6, Saban now with 5. What else you could say except it was the further establishment of a true dynasty, not just in college football, but currently in all the sports. You just can't top better what Bama has done. 4 titles in 7 years, and we're talking about different assortment of players that keep rotating in skill, position, role, leadership year after year after year, and to keep up that level of consistency in one of, if not the toughest conferences in all of America to play collegiate football and still come out on top, still win conference titles, still go to high-level bowl games, still winning national titles. It speaks to, A, like I mentioned before, how great your coach is, B, how great the program is, C, how great the culture is, It's a great assortment of factors that Bama enjoys having the advantage of, and I tip my hat to them. It was a great because that Ole Miss loss must have awoken something in them, and they went on an absolute tear. They really showcased it in the game against Michigan State leading up to it. And though it was a bit of a struggle, they reminded everyone who they are, and what they are, and why they are what they are. So, a great win by a great team and a great program.
And speaking of Michigan State, we shift to college football, to college basketball. The Spartans get upset by Iowa again, 76-59 at home. Not once, but twice. And they get swept by Iowa for the first time since the 92-93 season. And that's a complete and total joke and disgrace to Michigan State University. They trailed 45-24 at halftime. It was just... It was just a travesty to see all that.
It was a very surprising game, to say the least. I would have expected, say, they're at home, because correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I'm looking at photos right now. Denzel Valenti played in this game. They're at home. You'll think MSU will be able to take care of business, but no, Iowa. They showed their worth, proved their mettle, and just flat out took it to MSU in all ways, shapes, and sizes, and walked away with another win, another double-digit win at that. They swept the series from a team that is a top 5, top 10 team in the rankings, has the potential to be a number 1 seed down the road in the NCAA tournament. So I think this should be not an indictment on MSU, but an endorsement of how good Iowa is and can be, because now they're going to see their stock raise after this, and they should be seen, because while MSU is seen as a top team to take seriously nationally, Iowa's making some noise amongst themselves that they could be a perennial, see themselves as the new front runner potentially to win the Big Ten Conference. So if that happens, we'll see what noise they can make in March. But for now, a great win, a great platform, because it was a big nationally televised game for them to show their worth and showcase what they're truly made of. And in the words of, ironically, former MSU quarterback Kirk Cousins, you like that? Absolutely.
Well, in the first half, the Spartans kept turning the ball over, and they fell behind right afterwards. Not afterwards, but they fell behind right from the get-go, and they kept turning the ball over, and they had had a few calls from the referees go Iowa's way, but I don't know if they were good or bad calls, but one was good, one was bad, but literally it's mostly just MSU just pulling the self-destruct trigger to their heads. Somehow they just can't get their crap together against the Iowa Hawkeyes for some reason. They keep beating all the other teams. It seems as if the Iowa Hawkeyes are the only team that the Spartans can't beat thus far. The Spartans don't play Iowa for the rest of the regular season. They still might play them in a revenge game in the Big Ten tournament later on this season. But for now, they got to focus on Madison, Wisconsin. That is on Sunday at 1:30. The Badgers. That is on CBS. And it's just another tough game for the Spartans. They've had fits with the Badgers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So things don't exactly get easier for them from that point. But now, speaking of Iowa, it makes their upcoming game with Michigan that much more intriguing. And with that, I think we should transition to the Wolverines. Would you say so, Taylor?
Yeah, let's do that. The Michigan Wolverines upset the number 3 Maryland Terrapins 70-67 at Chrysler Center without Karis LeVert, and that was after Michigan. Dating back a month ago, when Michigan, when they were ranked 24th, they lost to Xavier, and then they kept losing, but then they kept winning most of their games, or at least some. But then when it got down to the Big Ten regular season, there was a point where the Wolverines upset the Terrapins, just like that.
Oh, man!
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it was due to how you like I said, with Karis LeVert out of action, somebody else or multiple people needed to step up and provide offensively for the Wolverines, and they got that. 3 of their starters scored in double digits. You saw Zach Irvin finally reemerge with 8 of 14 from the field. Here's some key threes, had 22 points.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Walton Jr., even though, he still, had his struggles shooting from the field, he had some key three-pointers as well, ended up with 12 points. Duncan Robinson, big 6'10".
Derek Walton Jr. had a double-double of 12 points and 10 rebounds, may I add.
Oh, yeah. So even though he wasn't contributing offensively, grabbing some boards and having 4 assists, he still found ways to contribute to the game, and that's a great sign. Great thing to see from your point guard. Duncan Robinson, the 6'10" guard. I know, crazy to say. That's how he's listed on the chart. 5 of 9 from downtown, ended up with 17 points. His scoring, of course, was crucial and key to that. Not much good bench work, but this came down to Michigan kind of reverting back to the old days of how they were and what they still are underneath the system of John Beilein. Their primary way of scoring is of the three-point variety. They are a three-point shoot. They are a jump shooting team. They live by the 3. They die by the 3. When they're on, look out. When they're out, when they're not, oh boy. So yes, even though they got clearly dominated in the paint and in terms of the rebounding category, they held on to the ball more than Maryland did. They limited the turnovers, and like I mentioned, they knocked down their 3-point shots, and that was the key, and that was the reason why they were able to walk away with this victory. Now, can they use this now to start up rolling some momentum? Because now you got a big game coming up Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock. I believe it's going to be on BTN against a now undefeated in the conference Iowa team, because this could help shake things up within the standings, because at this moment Michigan is above Michigan State in terms of conference rankings and standings in the Big Ten. So if you beat this Iowa team, now it moves you up into potentially a tie for first here. So if they can get all this done, and while still waiting on Karis LeVert to get back, it can make them a team that has some upside of what to do come tournament time, as we get closer to at least the conference tournament. If they can make a little mini run of their own and possibly shock some people and win a conference title, or at least win a share of it, depending on what they do in the regular season, and of course what they do within the conference tournament.
And their next game is indeed on BTN, Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Central. Michigan at number 16 Iowa, and Michigan's going to be in for a tougher game. It's going to be on the road, not in Ann Arbor, but in Iowa City. But the Wolverines will try to avenge the Spartans, as I like to prefer for myself. But the Wolverines and Hawkeyes, it's like you mentioned, it's going to be an intriguing matchup. We'll just have to see what happens. So Michigan and Iowa, do you have any breakdown or tail of the tape?
Basically, what Michigan needs to do, they just try to continue the hot streak that they had here against Maryland. Hit your 3-point shots, take care of the ball, and have your starters contribute offensively as much as you can while you're waiting on Carousel to get back. At least show a little bit better resiliency in the paint. Grab some rebounds, put back some missed shots if you can. Box out people for the love of God. No, we're not expecting circa Mitch McGarry level performance, but show at least a little bit of showing. Like I said, tougher resiliency amongst the boards, because that's going to be a big key if you want to have a chance at winning this game.
Yep. So with college basketball out of the way, we transition to pro basketball.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
The Pistons fall to the Spurs 109-99 at the Palace, and then they come back only to give up a 7-0 run to the Grizzlies and lose 103-101 on Mario Chalmers' game-winning shot with 0.8 seconds left, and one. He intentionally missed it, and it went out of bounds and time expired. Pistons aren't doing too well now, but what we saw from Aaron Baines when I was bashing him before, Aaron Baines, as you pointed out, did pretty good in the first half, and I saw it too, don't get me wrong, but in the second half he went back to playing sloppy as usual. But he in the first half he had 2 successful putback attempts finally, but he went back to like muffling the rebounds and just flat out mailing those putbacks again and again. Not handling rebounds, getting called for fouls, additionally, and more awful putback attempts. It's been going on for the last few games now, and it's irritating.
I think, it definitely is, but I think what Baines can give you in terms of production and what he's capable of, if you feed him good passes off the pick and roll into the paint, he has a good chance of finishing those. Like, that's what any serviceable player in the NBA can do, especially big man. If you're coming off the pick and roll and going into the paint, that's your job to do. If you can do that, okay, you're qualified to do something. So he in turn can help you, give you some sort of offensive production when Andre Drummond is on the bench, whether it be for foul trouble, foul issues, or they're trying to prevent the hack-a-tray scenario. But however, like you mentioned before, he lacks everything else essentially. Not good ball handling ability, being able to get easily out-muscled and out-maneuvered in the paint. Not very good at latching down those rebounds. So, like I said, he's not exactly, he's good, but he's not setting the world on fire, basically.
Let me check the Pistons schedule real quick.
Well, I can tell you for now, it doesn't get any easier because their next game is tomorrow night at home against the Golden State Warriors. 7:30.
Yep. On Fox Sports Detroit. Yep.
That's a nice Friday night matinee.
Yeah, the Golden State Warriors are just an extremely powerful team with Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, all those other guys. They're just a team, almost undefeated.
Yeah, so that's you can basically chalk that up as never lost. If they win that game, I'll be shocked. So now you're running on 3 straight losses potentially, and now you're back to 2 games over 500 when the Bulls come into town the very next. Let's see. Yeah, they come in on Monday for Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Yep.
At
3:30
at the Palace. That's going to be their final home game before they head out on a Western Conference road trip. It's going to be 4
sort
games.
of a Midwest road trip.
Midwest, yeah, you can
Houston, New Orleans, Denver, and Utah. That's not quite Pacific.
No, I meant Western Conference, not
Western
West Coast.
Conference. Well, I know. Yep. I'm just.
Yeah.
being more specific about it.
Yeah, I got you on that. So this is a very important stretch of games in terms of trying to keep up with some of these other teams that's either ahead of them, behind them, or neck and neck with them in terms of potential playoff spots in the Eastern Conference. Trying to find the standings right now. Give me one brief second.
By the way, the Monday game is against the Chicago Bulls. Did you mention that already or no?
Yeah, I did. It's going to be on Martin Luther King Day.
Yep.
Martin Luther King Jr. Day at 3:30.
I heard that.
Currently, as they are ranked, the Pistons are 7th in the Eastern Conference standings. They're one game above the Orlando Magic.
Still in 7th place.
Still in 7th. They probably could have moved up well by winning a game or two because the Miami Heat, the team that's above them, they've lost 3 straight. So a win in any of these past 2 games could have bumped the Pistons potentially ahead of them because I think they own the tiebreaker of the Heat because they beat them head to head.
Pistons are going to start playing defense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And not just be reliant on Drummond to be your rim protector inside the paint. You got, if need be, double some people. Now, granted, it was going to leave up some shooters. And when you face a team like Golden State, that's the worst thing you can do. But if you establish and maintain a good zone, or at least guard the pace at all costs, like you
guard the arc
before Drummond went out. Yeah, forget about the arc. The arc is secondary. You got to establish better domination inside the paint because if you're letting players get easy looks at the basket, it's not a good look for you overall. Like that's one of your main primary strengths of what you can do offensively. That can't be a gigantic weakness for you defensively, especially when Andre Drummond is on the bench. So you got to improve that first and foremost before you can worry about defending any outside shooting game.
Or probably just go man-to-man because if you focus on the paint too much, it's going to leave guys wide open for 3, and mostly it's going to sink in the basket, and that's a problem. That's been the issue I've been trying to point out for days, maybe months.
That is an issue, yes, but they're going to have a different issue altogether. Like I said, if they can't control the one strength that they have and let it grow into an out-of-control weakness defensively. And that's, like I said, maintaining things inside the paint. Don't focus too much, I agree, but still, seeing what San Antonio did, granted, they are a great balanced team. But, even still, you got to showcase a little more better defensive effort than that. So, like I said, tidy up on that. Yeah, and still maintain making sure that your perimeter shooting defense is better also.
Yeah, and most importantly, Aaron Baines has got to improve with his putbacks and his rebound handling, and because his lack of both is still irritating, as I mentioned. It's been a problem for the Pistons. So we move on from basketball to hockey. The Red Wings win 4 one-goal regulation games in a row with Peter Mrazek in net, and then they lose to the Kings in Los Angeles 4-2 with Jimmy Coward Howard in net. They need a new backup goaltender. Howard's done in Detroit. Terminate his contract, release him, and get a new backup goalie, or trade Howard. Mrazek earned his second star in this week's NHL 3 Stars of the Week earlier. Last week, after winning 4-3 in Buffalo, he went. He came up with a .67 goals against average in 3 games, all wins, including a shutout in New Jersey against the Devils and a .978 save percentage. In all of his 4 games, he came up with a 1.25 goals against average and a .960 save percentage. And then earlier tonight, after the 4-2 loss in Los Angeles with Howard Coward in net, the Wings came back and won 3-2 over the Arizona Coyotes in Glendale. They fell behind 2-0 in the second period on goals from defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson and the captain Shane Doan, who added an assist to his goal on the night. But then after coming in 1 for 10 on their last 11 power play opportunities, they scored two straight power play goals, courtesy of Pavel Datsyuk, a wrister through right by a bunch of traffic, and Gustav Nyquist in a scrum to come back and tie it at 2 in the third period, both on the power play. They're now 3 for 13 now, with those 2 straight power play goals. That couldn't have come at a better time for the Red Wings. And then finally in overtime, Dylan Larkin stayed with the puck after missing out on a scoring chance because he never got the shot off, and fed Danny DeKaiser, who wristed one top shelf past Louis Domingue for the game-winning goal. And the Wings win 3-2 in overtime and finished 10 out of 12 points in the 6-game road trip, which was concluded by the 4-game West Coast swing. Starting in San Jose when they won 2-1, then Anaheim they won 2-1, and then they lost 4-2 in Los Angeles, as I mentioned before, and then they won 3-2 in overtime over the Arizona Coyotes. The Coyotes got a point after this, after going 7-1-2 in the last 10 games. The Arizona Coyotes had been red hot until then, and it's now 7-1-3 in their last 11. I believe the Coyotes are still another team in the hunt for the playoffs in the Western Conference, but the Red Wings needed this win, or at least a point, as Jeff Moss pointed out on Twitter at JeffMossDSR. But I believe with the momentum on the Red Wings side coming back to them, I think they deserve to win this game, and they did, because they came back with 2 straight power play goals. That generated their momentum. That pretty much generated everything.
Yeah, it was a once in a blue moon occurrence, basically, you could say. I got, something that everyone must pay attention to it here. On this 6-game road trip, which ranged from the East Coast and, along the East Coast of Buffalo all the way to the West Coast regarding Arizona, Los Angeles, Anaheim, and San Jose. In those 6 games, Peter Mrazek was the starting goaltender in all 5 of those. They won all 5. Of course, like you mentioned, Jimmy Howard was the goaltender in Los Angeles. He got ran through, and they lost 4-2. This is not an even more telltale sign that Mrazek must be your starting goalie continuously going forward. I don't know what is. I think Jeff Blashill is starting to get the message now. Hence, starting Mrazek in, I believe, 6 of the last 7 games now. Or 8 of the last 10, however you want to look at it. He's starting Mrazek more and starting Howard less. Because you can see, when Howard is put out there, it's not gone well. I think Howard has lost his last 1, 2, 3, 4, at least the last 4 times. Howard has lost his last 4 games every time he started. Now, granted, 2 of those has been in shootouts, but still, one of them was in overtime, and the other 2, the past 2, he's given up 4 goals in both of those. So,
and he got pulled in both of them.
Right. So I'm starting to agree with you a little by little, in terms of they need to start looking into a new backup goaltender. Yeah. I always thought for a while that maybe Howard could be a serviceable backup because of his experience, what he's done in the playoffs. But now, oh boy, I don't know what he can give to you now, unless maybe you trade him to a team that needs a goaltender for depth on their roster.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did
Jimmy Coward's big contract is now worthless, in my opinion. Maybe he's got like 3 or 2 more years left in his contract. He's still tradable as a backup goaltender, but not a starter.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I once made a tweet a few years back saying, because I was so impressed in how he did in the playoffs, I call myself boldly predicting that the Red Wings would win a Stanley Cup with Jimmy Howard as their starting goaltender. Boy, am I wrong now, because now this is clearly Peter Mrazek's show. Howard isn't even proven himself to be a serviceable backup now at this point. So, hey, I'm willing to own up to my missteps and misstatements. So, that's one I was wrong in. So I got no problem in taking accountability for that. But as for Mrazek, I'm excited to see what else he can provide for us even more, and I expect him to be the next the starter for this next game coming up back at the Joe Sunday against Philly.
And they play the Flyers at home indeed. Sunday at home against the Flyers, 7:30 on NBCSN. And then they have another home game on NBCSN at 8 on Wednesday Night Rivalry against the St. Louis Blues. Looking at the Red Wings right now, they're 23-14-7 in second place in the Atlantic Division with 53 points. 4 points each in between the Atlantic Division leading Florida Panthers and the third place Montreal Canadiens at 49, Panthers at 57. Looking at the Flyers, they're in 7th place in the wild card division with 45 points at 19-15-7. The Blues are in 3rd place in the Central Division with 57 points at 25-15-7. The way the conference standings stand as of right now, the Wings are in 3rd place. The Coyotes still get a point, but suffer their 5th overtime loss, 22-16-5 with 49 points. The Flyers are in 13th place. The Blues are in 4th place in the West. Flyers are 13th place in the East. Going back to the division, the wild card standings, Coyotes are in 2nd place in the Pacific Division. Just a short 2-game homestand before they head back to Buffalo and play the Sabres. But that's all for hockey. We finally transition to baseball.
That one is long gone.
Here's an interesting note. The Tigers are interested in bringing back Ryan Rayburn.
You're crazy! You're crazy! You're crazy! Are you crazy?
Now, most fans are really pissed off and shocked and really set off about that news breaking out from Tony Paul of the Detroit News, the Tigers beat writer, also a beat writer for Michigan basketball and probably Michigan football as well. But I took some time and gave it some thought. I thought that Ryan Rayburn improved at least a bit in Cleveland, and what I saw in 2015 was very surprising in terms of statistics, because in 2016 his statistics were like this: a .301 batting average, his best since 2007 with .304, a .936 OPS on base plus slugging percentage, his highest ever, a .361 BABIP batting average on balls in play, and the best since 2007 with .373. His slugging percentage is .543. That's his best ever. So Ryan Rayburn's not really Ryan Rayburn was not really as bad as most Tigers fans would think. I think with him in Cleveland, he's after 3 seasons, we can say he's improved.
I guess, but I just still get bad memories of him, just like chasing at balls out the strike zone, just leaving his bat on his shoulder, cocking it, see what he can do, just looking very silly at the plate, trying to swing like he had no up there, didn't know what the hell he was doing. Every once in a while coming up, and I will give him his due on that, especially the comeback game against the White Sox. They were down 7 runs, and then came back in the 9th inning to win on a walk-off homer from Cabrera. Brian Rayburn was part of that. He had
As
a big
Drupal
shot.
Cabrera, that is.
Yeah. Miguel Cabrera.
No.
I think Rayburn hit like a 3-run shot.
Miguel Cabrera for the Tigers.
And then,
the Indians were playing the White Sox. It was as Drupal Cabrera, I think.
Was it the White Sox? I'm pretty sure it was the White Sox. It was in 2011. I don't know if it was against the White Sox or the Royals, but the Tigers were down 7-1.
Tigers were down 7-1?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm confused here, but anyway.
Yeah, but get back on point. Rayburn was part of that coming back. But anyway, for the most part, that was about as high as his ceiling level got in Detroit. Because it was like one of the rotation of people to turn, who do you take out your anger, frustrations on when the team isn't doing well, especially from an offensive standpoint. First it was Brandon Inge, then it was him, then they moved. For some reason, they never turned on Don Kelly because I guess they thought he was so nice of a person, and they could never hate Don Kelly. So, but then they moved on to someone else. So those are
Andrew Romine.
Yeah, Romine is another. Hernan Perez, I guess. But those were
Hernan Perez is now with the Brewers.
Those are my memories, so to speak, of seeing what Ryan Rayburn provided. It was in Detroit. Now I can see them bringing him back as a possible, I guess you could say, the platoon out in left field, because we've mentioned before they need a corner outfielder. And Rayburn has had some experience playing in the outfield and playing outfield with the Tigers before. So
and the infield too.
Yeah, but
second
definitely
base,
the outfield as well. So you can see him splitting some time with either Anthony Gose or Tyler Collins in left field.
Anthony Gose and Cameron Mabern are playing center field. Keep in mind, Tyler Collins is a left fielder.
Okay, so you can see him being platoon at left field with Tyler Collins, unless they somehow find enough money to bring back Yoenis Cespedes or even go after Justin Upton. But in terms of a backup plan slash more cost-cutting move, that'll be my only guess and reasoning as to why I see them going after Rayburn here.
Before we touch a little more on Andrew Romine, the Tigers are interested in Rockies outfielder Carlos Gonzalez and Orioles first baseman and designated hitter Chris Davis, whom they could play in the corner outfield. That's what I've been hearing from articles here, especially
Davis
from.
Would take care of that. Davis would take care of the option of outfielder with big pop, and he's a left-handed hitter. So you'll take care of a lot of those things, but defensively, I'm not so sure what he could do. It seems like he's gotten more comfortable in the infield at first base, so he probably would be doing more harm than good. Remember the Prince Fielder situation, how it shifted up your defense in a negative way, moving Cabrera to third base, that sort of thing. Would you want to risk that again? Yes, you're bringing a potential, a good offensively productive hitter who hits from the left side, gives you what you desperately needed, but is the trade-off that great that you want to risk that? That's only my concern here in terms of that potential signing, if there is one.
I believe so. Now to Andrew Romine, he and the Tigers avoid arbitration with a 1-year, $900,000 contract. And speaking of arbitration, Tigers right fielder J.D. Martinez has filed for arbitration, as most of us expected. Question is, will he go elsewhere?
our sake, you would hope not.
Hopefully not.
Because it's become an absolute gold mine of a discovery since we acquired him in a trade with the Houston Astros, who obviously would have loved to have had him in their lineup in the ALCS, or no, excuse me, in the ALDS against the Royals. So that's one guy
against the Orioles. You mean?
Might have been the Orioles. Excuse me.
It was the Orioles in 2014.
Drawing blanks at the moment. Because I'm trying to think. Because Toronto, they must have played. Let's see, who did Toronto play?
The Kansas City.
Was it?
That was in the ALCS. Toronto played Texas in the ALDS.
Right. And then they played the Royals. So no, it was the Royals. Right. They played the Royals
in the ALCS.
They used to play the Royals in ALDS. And then they were about to move on, and then they choked down the stretch. So, like I mentioned...
No. The Blue Jays played the Rangers in the ALDS, and then they lost to the Royals in the ALCS.
I'm talking about the Astros, not the Blue Jays.
The Astros, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Astros, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Yeah.
Not the,
Don't worry about it.
But,
like I said,
that was in the wild...
needed him. So, Detroit will be very wise for them to hang on to JD as much as they possibly can. I think, Jose Iglesias also filed for arbitration also.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm not sure, but let's see.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, but I definitely saw JD's name in there, so...
Yeah, we hate to lose JD Martinez and Jose Iglesias. We got to keep them.
Oh yeah, if especially for Iglesias with his defensive skills with the glove, but now apparently his improved offensive capabilities with his bat. Last year was spectacular for him. He was getting hits, getting on base, all that.
Yeah. And if they both go, or at least one of them goes, it's a shame either way. All right, all topics covered. Why don't we wrap this up with 5 questions?
It's time for 5 questions with Taylor the Gator Phillips.
Question number 1, how can Drew Sharp be stopped?
Well, it would be easier said than done to say, just fire him or suspend him, but I think you got to continue the route of what some DSR members were trying to do last week, which is continuously call and bomb 1051, get under skin, get on their nerves, kneel them as much as you can, let them know that we, the public, have not forgotten about this egregious act committed by Sharp, and actions must be taken to hold someone accountable for this.
Next question.
Question number 2, will Jim Caldwell get fired as head coach of the Lions, and if so, who can or should the Lions get?
In terms of what the Lions can get, if they do fire him, maybe, I was seeing his name float out there earlier. Maybe you try to aim for John Harbaugh, if that's a possible option. That's the only name I can think of at the moment. In terms of who else might be available. I still might do some brief research on that. But the heart of the question is, do you think the Lions would fire Caldwell? I want to be hopeful and say yes, but the cynic in me that's been kicked in the gut by the Lions for so many years, I'm going to have to say no, unfortunately.
Question number 3.
Next question.
Should the Pistons at least give Aaron Baines a fair warning? And how could Aaron Baines improve with his putbacks and rebounds?
With Baines, it's, he's already a bench player as is. It's not like, we're going to cut into your minutes. Like, no, he's a bench player. He's just doing what he's doing, with the time he's provided on the floor. As for him to get better, I think he's primarily a person where if you're ever going to give him the ball, it's low in the post or in the paint. Don't have him try to dribble out alongside the perimeter or the arc, so to speak, or because his ball handling is not there yet. But in terms of rebounding, box out. Well, yeah, just be around the area where you can box out as much as possible, and instead of trying having one hand out there, try to get both arms up as much as possible to give yourself a better chance of coming down with that ball. That's just the best advice I can give him in that regard.
I would say to Aaron Baines, use your hands better to corral the ball better, and not bobble the ball so much, and
focus on gaining better control while the ball's in the air.
And speaking of control your shots, control your putback shots better. Make sure they go in the basket, not way off, because that's another thing that's been irritating me. Question number 4.
Next question.
If the Red Wings get a new backup goaltender, who would it have to be?
That's a tough question. One.
Yeah.
Maybe have to trade for one. Maybe find one. Or just I would say they'll probably take the safe route and go for one of the goalies that's either third in the depth chart or probably already in Grand Rapids. The name probably escapes me at the moment, but I think that would be their course of action if Howard continues this downward spiral.
Yep. And finally,
next question.
Question number 5: Who should the Tigers pick up as the corner outfielder? Carlos Gonzalez, Chris Davis, or Ryan Rayburn? And if JD Martinez leaves due to filing for arbitration, and the Tigers have to pick up 2 corner outfielders, which 2 out of the 3 should they pick up?
Oh God, if you're nailing me to a cross here, I guess in one way, shape, or form, you can do an either/or/and with Chris Davis and Ryan Rayburn here, especially in the unfortunate scenario where JD leaves. You need to take as much power and offense production as much as you can. So Davis with his power and Rayburn with his improved metrics seem to fit those 2 categories separately. So those probably be my 2 guesses who you want to pick. Now, in terms of left field, now we have to go with Rayburn because he's had the better experience in that specific position for many years now, whereas Davis has just been for the past few years been stuck primarily as the first baseman /DH. So Rayburn on the individual option, on the multiple option, I would definitely throw in Chris Davis.
All right. Well, it's going to be tough for Chris Davis's performance to improve in the outfield from first base or DH because Chris Davis's legs probably get like thicker and probably not being able to run fast enough from first base, probably just standing there as a first baseman and not getting much activity, except when you gotta step on the first base bag and catch throws from third base, shortstop, or second base, or the mound, or from the plate, the catcher, or maybe in the outfield, one way or the other, from right field. It's going to be tough for Chris Davis to improve in the outfield.
I agree.
But I would say give him a shot.
Yeah, because like I said, you need power. In the corner outfield spot, that's the only thing you're needing, so to speak, in this off season, and it's from a left-handed bat. So that's what Davis can provide.
All right. Looks like we've covered everything, Ed. That wraps up episode 187 of the Detroit Sports Truth. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. If there's If there's anything you fans want more of or less of on our podcast, please let us know. Ed, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk Saturday at midnight. I will talk to you then.
All right. Take care and have a good night, Taylor. And same to you all in Listenerville.
And I'm Taylor Phillips. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.